to the Calculated Conversation Show on KBOO Community Radio. I'm your host, David Jefferson. I'm joined today by very special guests, Pele Wan, Rashida Robertson, and Ken Jones today. Today we'll be talking on the subject of social empathy and some of the important ideas around energy management. So I want to say hello to everybody. How y'all doing? I'm glad y'all showed up.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Rashida Robertson. I am a Portland native, a poet, and an author. A book titled Love Letter to the Black Man that specializes in Black love. And I am happy to be here.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And again, I'm David Jefferson. I'm the host. I'm in the fashion business, own a couple of clothing brands. It's like Society Kollege and Stacking Kicks. Also writing a book, becoming an author, and real intertwined into subjects of society and social education and awareness. And so the show is called Calculated Conversation, because we're going to talk about things that calculate into things that make sense. So I wanted to, the beginning is empathy is one of the biggest, is my thing that I wanted to talk about first, because of the relevance of it to the fact that most people don't understand each other, and it's a huge reason why. And so basically I'm under the precedence that the reason why most people don't understand each other is because most people don't know what it's like to be other people. And so that's kind of been my basis, kind of how I was able to build off of everything and create these philosophies. It all starts down with the fact that most people don't know what it's like to be other people, and most people don't do enough to try to empathize, to put themselves in those shoes. And I'm a firm believer that with more understanding, more empathy, you make more connections, you build more bridges, so you ultimately naturally go further in life because you are, more connected with people as a whole. And you got a space for everybody in your life on some aspect, no matter what variation they are of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, I just wanted to break it down and, and talk about it and get down to the base of where I think it all starts, and just try to slowly build up from there with, some new ideas on sort of repairing that damage or that lack of support.
Right.
So you got any ideas on empathy, Ken, and how it may or may not have affected your life, or things that you use to try to exercise that?
Something that I hear recently on the podcast that I have, my podcast made Morgan Jones, with a lot of these sex scandals coming up, these sex abuse cases coming up. She's addressed some of this. And one of the things I never had to think about personally was the idea of male privilege, right? That's something I'm a man, that's right? So this is how things have been. And something she broke down about the idea of being a woman and the things that you have to deal with on the daily, that kind of knocked me back. When I had to sit and think about the idea that I'm in a room with 4 other people, and I know that physically, all of them can overpower me. Honestly, if whatever, at any moment, if somebody wanted to go extra, they could.
Right.
Thinking about it from that angle, and having to live with that constant day to day,
Right.
and what that can do to you, right? And then being in these places where it's a position of power, you're dealing with somebody in a position of power all the time. Let's say your job, that's all you got, and your boss is trying to make his move, and you're scared to say something for the fact that you might lose this. So you're going along with it. It's not consent. It's just feeling like this is what I got to. So those kind of ideas, when it was broke down like that, that changed my idea on it.
Right.
And for me, that's where that connection and understanding on a better level, where now I have to think about all this stuff that's coming up. It's coming up in the news, where there might have been a moment where I was like, okay, it's just the hot news story. And people were just, no, this is, now they found a comfort because there's other people coming out and it's giving them strength to step up and step out.
Right.
And that's making me think about a lot of the dealings, a lot of the conversations that I have, even prefacing certain things I say with, I'm speaking from my male privilege standpoint right now when I'm giving this to you. And that's heavy.
Right.
And so that's one of those things as far as dealing with the women in my life, along with having daughters, having to understand this on a whole different level. And that's, I think for me, that's my understanding of empathy realized as far as trying to really understand that from that way.
Right.
And I guess related to me, the idea of being in a room with 4 dudes bigger than me, I'm a big guy.
Right.
So being in a room like, okay, they might all get their hands. That's crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But for that to be your everyday reality
My everyday,
in most
exactly.
situations,
Exactly.
like that's a real specialized circumstance that you're in a room with 4 other men, but just being in a room with one other person.
Right, right.
If you're a 5 foot, 120-pound woman, most other men
Right.
probably
Right.
overpower you.
With the
or
same
things like
stats,
that. So
right.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
your everyday reality.
Right.
It's a different. It's a
That's
different
it.
look through.
And you're a great father too. So I think that's an amazing testimony because you always get an opportunity to look from a female standpoint,
Right.
especially being a
Right.
father. And so that right there, coupled with that, you a father, a single
Right.
father or a girl, or wait, I'm sorry, how many girls you got?
I got 2 girls.
2 girls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, single father. So you probably was able to put all that in perspective, and it made more
Right.
sense, was put you in a better position to be able to deal with women, work with women, understand them, empathize, not judge.
Righteous.
Because it's always easy, I think, for us to always say what we would or wouldn't do. Every time
Yeah,
these things happen, you see them in the news or you see them like just online, and people, I would have did this, I would have did that.
Right.
But it's like, logical
Yeah.
thought is not always promised in a lot of these scenarios. And it's so easy to say what you would do when you're not in that situation. And we got to put ourselves in that situation so we can understand what people are going through and what they're thinking. And then we can work with them based on that level, and we can build up together. Like, people only really enjoy like conversation and working together and being close to people where they feel understood.
Yeah.
And so that's
They
something we
think
got to
it's
break.
something in common.
And I know Rashid is an author, and she writes on the subjects from a black love standpoint. Did you want to touch on empathy and what it means to you at all?
I mean, definitely, especially I think in relationships, that's lacking. Empathy. I think a lot of times we're with partners and we are trying to make them what we want them to be instead of understanding who they actually are.
Right.
And what it is that they're about. And I think that that's where people go wrong in a lot of relationships is they get a man and they look at what he could be or what I want him to be for me, but that may not be actually who he is. And then we get upset about that and try to dog him out for that when in reality it's about conversations and getting to know that person and then figuring out what that person about and helping him or her grow and excel. And I think that's what I push for and that's what I look for. And that's what I try to do in life with anybody that I try to come across. So
Right. It's a universal concept. I mean, it like works from literally all areas of life. We just have to, I think, break down the formula and make sure that people understand the simplicity in it. It's really not difficult, but you just have to. We have to retrain ourselves.
Right.
Because society doesn't teach us to be concerned with the idea of other people and their own struggles. Like, most of us are only concerned about what we go through.
Yeah.
And we're not doing it on purpose, but it's like that's all we really know. So we kind of got to go against, all the pressures of society to take advantage of our own, mind.
Yeah, society is getting more and more cutthroat. I had seen on the news not too long ago that there are children who have to pay for their lunches. If they go past due, they'll shut them down and won't allow them to get lunch and things like
that's
that.
ridiculous.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And the thing is, like, to be the kid in line trying to get your lunch, and then you get shut down in front of all your friends and everything. There's like, nope, your mom didn't pay the bill. You don't get lunch today. Like, what that does, and for that to be the norm that the school operates, and the other kids to see that doesn't foster any kind of community or any kind of empathy towards your fellow man. It's a crazy way that they're operating out there.
Because right now everything is so about what you have and what you don't have. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So for that kid that can't afford school lunch, and then you got kids that think they're somehow better
Right.
than the
Right.
person that can't afford it just because they can. I mean, I think we need to start instilling that, taking that value out of our children and start instilling something different in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense because, like, in my opinion, like even on a more profound level, that still enforces division to me, like on some
absolutely.
level. And
the
I
haves
think,
and the have-nots.
yeah, and so I think the division is the whole thing that we have to fight against. We have to write about, and sort of try to come up with formulas and ways to combat it because it's so natural to be divisive, you know, and lack of empathy is one of the clearest ways to divide people, by the fact that I don't know who you are, I don't know what you've been through, and I really don't care. And that's keeping me from having the information that I need to know who you are and what I actually can do for you or with you, or how we can work together and become a more tighter knit society, you know. And so, but it's just, you know, it's a matter of I think retraining our thoughts, man, which is extremely hard, man.
I think it's a matter too of being okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think the idea that, you know, you fall into whatever system you got, and that's what's comfortable. And change is being uncomfortable. And that's what a lot of people don't want to do. That's why you get so many people. I think everybody was a vegan 2 months ago. I ain't heard no updates.
Yeah, it's almost Thanksgiving.
Right. I'm just saying, so, you know, it's things like that that once everybody feels great that first week, but when it gets harder, you're going to go back to your normal routine.
Yeah.
Right.
That go for quitting smoking, exercise, like any kind of physical. But when you apply it to a mental, it's that much harder because it's easy to set a regimen. You could set an alarm to work out every day. But it's hard to set an alarm to change your pattern of thinking when situations pop up.
But I think too, though, the part of that, because I got an alert that pop up every night to write something down. I probably jump over about 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And so I can have the alert, but if I don't change this and make it an actual thing, it has to be mental at that point. I think that's something that gets you through the long haul. You can run almost anything for about 6 months. Then at that point it starts getting, if you've not...
It becomes routine.
Yeah.
It is something you have to like check yourself on, because I notice I don't do it until after I've had a thought that wasn't so cool, you know, and then I have to really sit back and digest. Like I'm at this point in my life where I'm trying to figure out why things are the way that they are. Yeah. So especially now more than ever when I see things, my instant thought is to think something negative, and sometimes I do. But it's after that I have to sit back and think about the situation as a whole, and then slowly but surely it gets getting a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, it just from, in my experience on that, it's a matter of just patience and taking time and just kind of really realizing what's more important and where you at in the situation, because a lot of things we perceive is mostly just all mental. You know what I mean? It's all in our head a lot of times. We kind of think ourselves into bad situations that really aren't that bad or really don't even last that long. Yeah. You know, and but ultimately it's just getting back to understanding that a lot of people go through that and empathizing with that to get back to empathy. You know, like since we know people go through that, and a lot of us are, you know, socially aware enough to know actually how to handle those thoughts. I think where a lot of people really don't know what to do with them. And it just kind of drive some people insane, you know. And so, even in that aspect, we still got to try to empathize and just let people know, like, you know, we all been there, and it's, you know, it's not an abnormal thing to think the way you think, but it's still not healthy, and it's still not proper. I understand why you're doing it, but there's also other ways that, you know, we can, you know, process information. We got to change our whole process of what we do with information when we get it.
Like,
you know,
to tie into that, what's real recent right now is this whole conversation that's resurging on toxic masculinity, and it's something that I had never really considered as, you know, abnormal. You know, it was the more manly side of being a man. You know, the whole essence of that whole mindset. And what really triggered that whole, you know, thinking about that in myself is I was hanging out doing the dishes, and I'm talking to my girlfriend, and I'm playing old Snoop Dogg, and I'm thinking, like, I was like 13 when I first heard this, and you know how formative this was on me as a 13-year-old. You know, we don't love these, and and all these messages that I'm taking in that you know were just it was entertainment. You know, it was like a TV show. It was like The Simpsons or Fresh Prince. It was something that, you know, I habitually was taking in. And it was so weird to see it now in my late 30s and look back at it like, man, that's really unhealthy for me to, because I operated under that kind of assumption for so long in my actual life, like maintaining my relationships, how I go about things with women and things like that. And it's looking back how much damage it's done to me, and especially being from a single mother, like how, you know, how against myself I was working. You know, it's really strange. And trying to implement, you know, otherwise in my kid and things like that it's a deep-seated, you know, I don't know where I'm going with it. You know,
It's
how to
just
close
so-
it out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It's so normal, you know, and I think that's the tough part, is because it's normally accepted as the way we operate in society,
Yeah.
and people follow it like a religion.
it's a valid train of thought.
And it's,
Like, you
and
know,
it's
like,
destructive.
Program.
And
yeah.
and it's destructive, and I don't know if they don't know it's destructive or if they just don't care, you know. But sometimes it's not always easy to look at that, because a lot of these people really think that they're doing and teaching the right things,
Yeah.
you know. So
I think about just you piggybacking off of what you were saying, Pele. Like I brought the same example up of what Doggy Style, The Chronic, and so on were for me being young. I'm from Southern California, so
Yeah.
this was lifestyle,
Yeah.
and this is what I knew. And so
Yeah.
getting older and understanding what was actually happening, and creating these ideologies based off of this music, and I don't care what, even at 33 years old, there's still music that influences my behavior in moments.
Right.
So to say that a kid being impressionable and being young, that it's just entertainment,
Yeah.
I can't go for it. Same.
And so
Especially-
now it's like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go
Rashida
ahead.
got
It's like
something to say.
because you have the sound, right? And you were able to listen to it, but now in this day and age, they're giving us visuals with Love and Hip Hop and all these reality TV shows that basically accompany all that music. So I can only imagine, because I'm not a teenager anymore,
Yeah.
but it's like
It's not
listening
blurred
and
out
now
like it
being
used
able
to
to
be.
see
No.
it's feeding their brain in a whole different type
Yeah.
of way, and they're looking at things like this as the norm. This is what it's
Right.
supposed to be like, and it's really sad.
Yeah,
It's
there's a
very
lot of kids
dysfunctional.
that can't wait till they're 18, so
Mhm.
life can be a Nicki Minaj video.
Exactly.
You know?
Right. I'm hoping, like, I know part about what I dream about and what I want to do, and what that all comes down to me is a flawed definition of what success is.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm working to try to change the definition of what success is. And if you can change that, you know, we can possibly change the way people achieve it, possibly.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of my whole thing, and it's so normal. But, you know, we have to make being smart cool, being intelligent cool, being an entrepreneur cool, being a father cool.
Yeah, there's a
being
resurgence of
being
that
a
on
writer
pop culture
cool.
level. You
You
know,
know?
it's starting to be cool to be smart again. You know, like the whole geek counterculture is really helping with that. But
Yeah.
you know,
But it's like a fake smart, you know. People want to
Yeah.
act like they're doing the research and doing,
They're
but they
Google
just
smart.
yeah, they
Bang Theory smart.
Mhm.
Big Bang Theory.
they don't
smart.
actually want to put in the work to actually get the information. You know what I mean? They just kind of want to act like it and be pretentious about it, but really they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the information is all around us.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it goes back to, you know, why I named the philosophy Society College, because it's just the education of society. It's the fact that society itself, just being outside, you're technically in school. You're in an institution of education. Every time you walk outside your house, you got a chance to understand people and understand something different. You got a chance to try something new. You got a chance to change a formula, come up with a philosophy, meet somebody that you never would have connected with, and build a conversation off similarities, as opposed to crossing the street due to differences. You know, things like that. And so, you know, and hopefully, you know, as we keep talking about these things, you know, they'll start to come to light a little bit more and more. You know, so.
I agree fully with what you just said about the information. This is the only piece in there that we got to remember, is that yes, the information is all around, but if we're not sometimes, especially being younger, pointed in the direction of that information,
Right.
then we know nothing about it. And if it's not, if you don't know what you don't know, as simple as that is,
Foreign language.
right. And so I think it's got to be more about sitting and having these conversations
Yeah.
with the youngers. Not saying that people our age, but I'll put my money on
Right.
the
Absolutely.
youngers. And that's where the information's got to get fed to, so they're not 30 trying to figure it all out. That's where a lot of us are at. That's when we're starting to understand credit. That's when we're starting to
Yeah.
understand what home ownership is really about, outside of just, oh, I got a house. Those are the pieces that need to be put while they're still young, from understanding what a savings account is, a checking account, just some of these basics. This is stuff that gets pushed.
Okay. Good stuff. I don't want to get caught up in that too much, because we got to get moving. Basically, grouping up all physical similarity, things that
Yeah.
you can see. You know, and we completely forgetting about the emotional and then the spiritual.
Yeah.
You know,
So, hey,
and
we all got non-web feet. That's enough.
all the other similarities that we have internally, and we focus on the external differences, you know. And so that's a good concept. I didn't hear about that, but man, that make a lot of sense though, because people start to think, well, they're dividing us, and so we got to find a way to, you know, secure our divide as well for just for us.
You know, yeah.
And it's always been okay.
I think
know?
that's true, a little bit deeper than just the times. I think evolutionary, we gravitate towards what's similar, and that's
normal.
That's normal.
Yeah.
But needing to open up the conversation that just because, okay, my comfort, I walk in this room and I'm going over there to sit, as opposed to going over here.
Yeah.
That it doesn't make it bad.
No.
And me going to sit over here, maybe a little bit more back and forth I might have to do again, going back to being uncomfortable for a second to have this conversation. But like you said, after having that, and we get past just here, we might have a lot more in common. I came into that plenty of times.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that definitely needs to happen, and the shift needs to happen in that arena.
Man, those are some of the best conversations I've ever had, you know.
Right.
But anyways, we wrapping up. I appreciate everybody coming through. Ken Jones, Pele Wine, Rashida Robertson.
Thank you.
This is the Society Kollege Calculated Conversation Show on KBOO Portland Community Radio. Thank you. Have a good day.
Good job, bro. That was good for off the cuff.
Yeah, it was.
I quote this, black wings so ferocious.